Welcome to another episode of Hard Lens Media. We've got a great show for you guys. We're live here on Q4 Radio, 1680 AM. You can listen to us on q4radio.org or check out our Facebook live stream. That being said, Daniel, I think it's time I pass the mic to you because you've got an interesting update for us.
Okay, everyone. So we do have a new member joining the Hard Lens Media team. Her name is Rebecca, and I'm going to let her introduce herself from here.
Hi guys, I'm Rebecca Mara. I'm a meteorologist currently working on a catastrophe modeling team in the insurance industry. I went to school for meteorology at Northern Illinois University, and while I was there, I interned with the most famous meteorologist in the country, Tom Skilling, and I was really inspired by his passion for climate science and the way that he uses his platform to give seminars discussing climate change, feature movies about climate change like Chasing Ice. I went on to intern at other cable news stations in Rockford, considering that route of becoming a broadcast meteorologist could ultimately lead me to my goal of informing the public by discussing the socioeconomic impacts of climate change. Unfortunately, when I was in that atmosphere, it was very uncomfortable. It was an environment of actors, and I just kind of hated it. It fell flat, and I felt very disheartened, and no one there was interested in changing the way the public discusses climate change and its solutions. In fact, in 2016, major news networks only spent 50 minutes combined discussing climate change, which could arguably be the most detrimental issue to our planet. Meteorologists are the only scientists that people see daily, and I feel that we have a unique position in the media landscape that I believe also comes with a unique responsibility. In the meteorology community, there's only a few type of people that become meteorologists. A lot of them are really, really smart, but it's hard to communicate science. Math is a whole other language, and the ones that do go into it looking to become broadcast meteorologists, sometimes it's all for the glory. It's kind of like they're actors when they start out. So with that, with my unique my skill set of meteorology education, communication skills that you guys will hopefully help me, refine, and the fact that I really value authenticity, I have a passion for environmental justice. It just makes me feel totally responsible for informing the public on the socioeconomic effects of climate change, man-made climate change. And so I realized this is a wide open sphere for me with no competition, which is kind of cool. I sense it's in high demand because nobody's covering it, and I know from myself sharing different information, people are really excited to learn about what's going on. And I'm here to take advantage of this incredible opportunity. And, that being said, I want to thank Daniel, Kit, Paul, all you guys at Hard Lens Media for welcoming me, being super supportive, and letting me join the team. And I really admire your dedication to this humble mission of being the voice for the disenfranchised and communicating the truth. You guys really are what the free press represents, and we really, really need it in our country and our city right now. So I only see this network continuing to flourish and succeed and making history.
Well, I think I'm going to speak for all of us. We are glad to have you part of our team.
Thank you.
More importantly, I think now's the time where we can really discuss the true impact of climate change and how it's a true scientific fact. And the very fact that corporate media isn't talking about climate change and its impact on us as a species, we are really happy to have you on board so we can at least pick your brain to understand, like, hey, what does X, Y, and Z do to our ecology, our economy, and how we're going to push forward as a species as our planet is clearly changing.
Right. Like, one thing I just wanted to point out, one of the headlines that I look at, severe droughts and heat waves expected to spawn multi-billion-dollar costs around the globe. Right now, there's 11 wildfires raging in the Arctic Circle. And, it's affecting Sweden, Norway, Scandinavia in general. So I don't know if anyone knows that, but it's kind of crazy that nobody has heard that.
How can anyone know it, especially when corporate media refuses to acknowledge climate change?
Right.
And then also, let's not forget, I have some friends, especially a shout out to the crew of the Comfy Couch, or not the Comfy Couch, the Convo Couch. They're an independent media network like us in California, and California is on fire.
Right.
There's a huge firestorm happening there. So
yeah.
I hope you guys are safe, and definitely I'm glad that we have you on board.
Thank you.
I want to add one last thing. So when we basically got in touch with Rebecca, actually, I found you on LinkedIn. You were talking about, like, hey, maybe one day I'll reach out to Hardlands Media. I looked at your bio. I'm like, yeah, I think that would be a nice thing if you reached out to us. So I reached out to you, and talking what I really appreciate about what you did is you naturally you had the skepticism that I think is required to be in this company, that the way things are covered isn't necessarily correct. It's correct from a certain perspective of people that want a certain type of thing accomplished, but for people that don't have a voice, it's not the right viewpoint. For people that care about what's actually happened, what's factual, it's not the right viewpoint.
Right.
And you saw that, and I think that's one of those most important things, one of the most important traits of being on this network. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think anyone that has seen what the mainstream media operates like can kind of either decide they're going to go one way or the other.
Yeah, and you have more experience on that than even we do combined.
And,
yeah.
and you got a background, too, so that's awesome. So we're glad to have you part of this show,
awesome.
And we're also glad to get your input. So that being said, we're going to push forward to a story that we covered. As you all know, we're keen on definitely covering elections, especially for 2019. It's going to be really big for the city of Chicago. It's a municipal election cycle where we get to choose our next alderman, potentially a new mayor. And Hardlands Media was at the Northside Democracy for America Forum with the 40th Ward candidates. All of them were there, save for the incumbent, which is starting to be a running theme with the establishment that is in charge of our city government. A lot of them just don't show up. But there was one who was an incumbent who did show up. He was with the 45th Ward. He showed up and was pleading his case about why he wanted their endorsement. But that interview you could check out on the Hardlands Media YouTube channel, or if you go on our Facebook page, you could check out that live stream of that event as well. They all were definitely indicating why they should be the 40th Ward candidate. But what was really unique is that all of them were progressives, and each one of them had it up to here with the current incumbent, who was in charge of the 40th Ward. All of them were talking about...
He's a 35-year incumbent, I believe.
And who has connections with a large real estate developer that is gentrifying areas in that Northside community.
I think he's actually even beyond having connections. He runs a real estate empire that does that.
That is true.
He's a real estate tycoon.
Real estate tycoon. And look, this is a common story that's happening all across Chicago. It's just not on the south side or west side, but it's even on the north side too, where communities are being gentrified and working class families are struggling. Here in Chicago, you got people working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And so the 40th Ward candidates, you had Ugo Akere, you had Andrew Vasquez, as well as 2 other candidates as well that were running for office. And, each one was really making their point about why there should be change within the city government. Look, Chicago is the most corrupt city in the United States. And how did that corruption happen? Is it the people's fault? No. What we have is a neoliberal system in which money is speech, corporations are people, the large real estate developers have bought and sold many of our elected officials. And so let's look at our city government. They don't work for us. They work for their donors. They don't work or care about you guys. They only care about, their bottom line. Daniel?
A nice thing that goes along with this is obviously with the live stream, it's over an hour, but it's nice to watch if you don't want to see the entirety, everyone talking and people asking them questions. But upcoming this week, I believe from Monday through Thursday, myself and Adam will be doing a video edit, so you can really see a nice summary of all of these different candidates, and that'll be coming out on Monday through Thursday, I believe, at about 5 p.m. Mm-hmm. So keep an eye out for that. But to these candidates, I think it's fantastic that we have so many progressive candidates that are actually running. I don't think I've been in a situation where we aren't in a situation where everyone running against someone is considered progressive by their viewpoint and what they stand for. And that was kind of refreshing, and it goes to show you see the Democratic Party's language shifting to what Bernie Sanders did. You have the candidates doing the same. You have people that are just starting to run. for office that are doing it. So, we've seen we'll get to a little bit later, but you've seen like the Washington Post and Politico is out there saying that the progressive wave is dead. I would just say that they're completely biased. And by the numbers, about half of progressives who have run in elections have been victorious with, not a lot of experience, with organizations helping manage them that also don't have a lot of experience.
And without establishment backing.
Without establishment backing, being outspent 2-to-1, 10-to-1, not having any press coverage, and in a country where having the most money means that you win 95% of the time, and they're winning an order of magnitude better than that 95%, or as Politico would call it, a complete disaster and a failure. They're not doing anything or winning at all. But as everyone who, again, believes in facts and representation goes, winning about 50% of the time is not bad when you're completely outspent, outgunned, outexperienced in a system that doesn't like you.
Yeah.
I think that we went into these elections running 20 candidates because we wanted 10 to win. Like, we expected losses. We have nothing. I mean, we have the people power, but we are against the machine that has all the money. I mean, it's just silly. It's completely silly for them to be printing this. It's ridiculous.
When we were covering because you were actually there with us at the 40th Ward Forum, what really stood out to you in regards to the candidates running?
Well, I just want to say what really stood out to me was the people that show up. If you notice, the people that are showing up to these things, they're asking questions to the nominees or the candidates. They're asking them progressive questions. They want them. They're really grilling them. So I think that just says the direction we're going in. There's really the thing that the media is trying to portray is just totally off.
Yeah.
And I would also add into that to even the representation, you had Laura Chamberlain, who's been on the show. She was there. She's, of course, very big on anti-corruption, which is something that we hold dear to our hearts, the three of us as members of Wolfpack. But then you also had on Our Revolution representative. You had an Illinois Normal
Shauna East was there. Yeah, Shauna East was there.
But even further, what that says is that the groups themselves that are doing this management are also gaining power, and they're also putting themselves out there. So it's not just the candidates, because on some level, having a progressive candidate is fantastic, but a structure needs to be developed to allow them to continue to succeed year after year. And so we have a number of groups, again, that are winning about 50% of their time, with many of it their first election that they're doing any work in. So imagine what happens in the next election.
Yeah.
Right, like Democracy for America, who hosted the event. They are going to pick the most progressive candidate to support because that's going to be the most popular candidate. So, yeah, I totally agree.
So I live and work in the 40th Ward, and it's funny. I talk to people in like neighborhoods that I frequent, and you go, "Hey, there are a bunch of people running against O'Connor. This could be the year that we finally get this guy out of here and get some new blood in the district." And people look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, "Oh, he wins every year, though. Like, nobody's going to unseat him." And there's this dispassionate sort of disconnect between a lot of average folks and the political process, because we're talking about a seat that gets won with like 6,000 or 7,000 votes. That's it.
Out of, I believe, 30,000 registered Democrats.
That's right. So, I mean, people's apathy toward this can't be overstated, and that's something that we're sitting here trying to say, hey, there are people running.
Yeah.
There are people that you probably want holding this seat running. Pay attention.
And even that, it's a runoff seat, so it doesnn't really matter that much right now that there are four progressives running against him. If there wasn't a runoff, it might be a much bigger deal. But since there isn't, all he has to do is not get 50%, and whoever does the best in the election, that person is now able to run off against him. And all these groups, it got this very strong sense listening to everyone speak that whoever wins the primary, whoever gets the runoff against him, they're all going to group behind him and put all their efforts together. And if he gets less than 50%, that means kind of by default that the combination of them got more than 50%. So,
right. And the nice thing, too, is that the people that are knocking on doors, these candidates, they're communicating to the residents that we need to get O'Connor out of here. So hopefully the message is perceived by the residents of the ward that if your candidate that you talk to isn't going to be the one that runs in the runoff, then they can join the other progressive candidate.
Right. And another point to note, too, as well is, look, everywhere I go in the city of Chicago, I'm pretty sure everywhere where all of us go in the city of Chicago, people complain about how corrupt and inept the city government is. Well, it's one thing to say it's inept, but what are you going to do about it? We have the power to kick these people out of office. I'm tired of hearing about how corrupt Chicago is. This is our city, and I don't care what neighborhood you live in. Together as a community, as a city, we are being screwed over by this corrupt, inept, neoliberal city government that is basically ruining the lives of everyone here in the city of Chicago. It's hard to live here. It's hard to work here. And there's only one way we can do it, and that's by getting rid of the current administration as well as the current aldermen. All right? How many times are we just going to just sit back and say, oh, I hate him, I hate him, I hate him, but there's nothing we can do? Well, we do have the power. Remember, they are public servants. Mm-hmm. We are the masters. I keep saying this all the time. And personally, I'm not going to speak for Hard Lens Media. I'm only going to speak for myself. One of my goals, at least for 2019, is to at least get a 1%, just a small 1% increase of voter turnout. That's it. I'm going to keep it low. And the only reason why is because I kind of want to get everyone angry to be like, well, no, I want to get involved. Come on, let's talk to my neighbors. I'm going to say 1% turnout, but I want all of you to get angry. I want all of you to get upset and to stand up and use your voice, use your power. Remember, if we just bow our heads and just let the city government get away with it, more and more communities are going to be gentrified. More and more people are just going to be pushed out. And it's time that we as a city, as a community of all different backgrounds, stand up and do the right thing and actually get involved and use our political power. That's what Hard Lens Media is going to do. We're going to be interviewing all the alderman candidates, all the mayoral candidates that are running for 2019, because we want to put Chicago on the map as this is the time where the people take back the city. We can do it. We have that power. And anyone who tells you that we don't, look them straight in the eye and says, watch me. Do it.
I also want to add into this that, kind of also on a personal note, what we really need is if we just got that apathy that Paul was talking about out of the way, or a lot of it out of the way, or a lot of it out of the way with just people under 45, there will be new aldermen in office. There will be a new mayor. If you just double or triple. I mean, again, we were talking way back when the primary happened that only 3% of people 18 to 25 voted in the primary, and that was it almost disgusted me, because it's like you have so much power as this large growing demographic that is highly educated, understands the issues, and people's response has been through decades, yeah, but I can't do anything about it. But everyone that says that, if all those people were grouped together and voted in a way that they actually felt, the country would be a different place. But we don't have that. But what we do is we have the ability to have that. And we've had, although there was a lot more progressive victories on the East and West Coast, we had some victories here locally. And Fritz Kage, we've had on the show a number of times. He did a fantastic job. And his role cannot be understated how much of an effect it will have. And I think that if he does what he says he's going to do and is able to shift property taxes around, that gives hope to people, and that takes away some of that apathy, because he was a guy that ran on a change-type platform, and he can change it, so that brings people. You have all these people that are running that have all these really energized volunteers who have only recently really gotten into politics that are going to be. So you may have people that are apathetic that, like Paul said, like he's going to keep winning, but when they have 5 or 6 different people for candidates that aren't O'Connor knocking at their door, maybe they'll change their mind.
Right, and I want to add one final note because we got to move on to another story. Remember, the Fritz Kage campaign was a big deal because he got rid of he defeated somebody who was in power for more than just 10 years. And under Barrios' watch, the city of Chicago, Cook County, right now Fritz Kage's got a big job ahead of him, but he defeated Barrios. That is a big deal. And, the office of Cook County Assessor is a small office, but it got national attention. It was even covered in the New York Times. So when people say you just can't beat out these establishment candidates, look at the Fritz Kage campaign. He did it. He was on our show. You can check out those interviews on our YouTube channel.
Even the ones that didn't win, which we're going to get to in some future stories, that they're getting very close. We're going from... Like in the primary, we went from candidates that everyone would think maybe they'll get 5% of the vote to winning 25% of the vote in their first time running against very long-term opponents. And then in the other primaries that we had people like Marie Newman just barely lost against Dan Lipinski.
I still have to look at that election. There was something really fishy about it. But then,
we've talked about before that the way to look at it is to win an election in Chicago, you have to actually get 60% of the vote in order to get 51% of the vote.
Right.
So I look at her situation as she got maybe 58% of the vote, so she only got 49% of the vote.
Right.
So there is corruption in the city, but what it's shown is that what I've been saying for the congressional level, it's all just a paper tiger. They have one wall of defense that as soon as it's breached, they can't do anything about it.
Right. All right, and now that being said, we're going to move on to another story. You know, personally, I like to talk about third parties. I like to, address the issue of them. Like from the Green Party, we've had Green Party candidates on our show, Libertarians on our show, and apparently now there is an article out how the Democrats are complaining about the Green Party again. So, Paul, what's going on? Why is the Green Party being blamed?
This is a repeated tactic that the Democratic Party uses when they don't win. Basically, the Democratic Party has a big problem taking responsibility for losses. We saw this in 2016 with Hillary Clinton and playing the blame game. It was the Russians, it was Jill Stein, it was Susan Sarandon, and they're doing it again here. So Ohio just had a special election in their 12th district. It was going to be very close. We knew it was going to be very close from the beginning. A different O'Connor, not Pat O'Connor. This is Danny O'Connor, was the Democrat trying to run against Droy Balderson, and lost by less than 1 point, like 1,500 votes. So immediately, the backlash is, it's all the Green Party voters. There was a Green Party candidate, and so anyone who voted for that person is the reason why we lost as a Democrat. It's voter shaming. It's
democracy shaming.
Right. It's basically saying, we deserve your vote. How dare you vote for someone who you really want to represent you that actually goes further on the values that you like, instead of playing lesser evilism with the rest of us.
Yeah, I just want to say that this sentiment is so extremely offensive to all the people that the Barack Obama administration left behind. I mean, you're trying to say that your candidate is just the same as a Bernie or a Green Party. All of the people that lost their homes under Obama, became homeless, were poisoned in Flint, basically by the government, poisoned in East Chicago, Indiana. People that were protesters that were beat at the DAPL protest for months and abused. I mean, all of these people, you're telling me that none of them deserve to be stuck up for by the government. And it's so offensive. And these people, which is most of the country at this point, we're never going to vote for a establishment Democratic candidate ever again.
Right.
This is the thing that really bugs me about this, too, is even if... So the assumption is... So Joe Manchin is the Green Party candidate in the 12th district in Ohio in the race. Even if all of his votes went to the Democrat still would have lost. Even if every single one...
But it's still their fault, Paul.
What about the people that didn't vote at all because you didn't even talk to them or address them?
Yeah, imagine if Democrats put 10% of the energy into getting voters that don't normally vote to vote for them rather than all the energy that they put into fighting the Greens. I had a very long series of Facebook arguments with two different groups of people online, as does in this wonderful modern day and age of ours, and I was explaining that if your thing is to shame Greens in that they didn't vote Democrat, all you're accomplishing is okay. So we've done coverage on Greens. The Greens really despise the Democratic Party. So first of all, like Paul said, the inherent assumption that the Green Party would have voted Democratic if they didn't vote Green is ludicrous, and it shows that they have no idea what the Green Party is about. The Green Party is almost as much their own party as they are an anti-Democrat party, but they are, of course, their own party. So you have that. And I almost get the sense that more Greens would vote Republican than even Democrat, which would even have widened that gap to begin with. So you have these Green Party candidates that are treated like dirt in a democracy. So you have Democrats yelling at another party, demanding that they not participate in democracy. We have over 50% of the population does not vote. Yet we're shaming the group of people that decided to vote outside of the dichotomy, because their entire point is that the Democratic Party hates me and everything I stand for, so I'm not going to vote for them. So Democrats respond by saying, we hate you and everything you stand for, vote for us. So, of course, that's not going to work. Of course, that's just going to entrench the Greens more and more away from the Democratic Party. And the Republicans don't do that. It's the only reason I would say that they
Yeah.
would have more voting in the Republican is they really just don't like the Democratic Party. But instead of Democratic Party going and saying, hey, let's get new voters in that haven't voted before, which is what a lot of progressives, that's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did. She increased the size of the pie. They're not doing that. They're just saying, shame on you. If you hadn't voted for this Green Party, we would have won, even though we wouldn't have.
And
this
you don't
is the-
deserve to have anyone that represents you.
All right, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, this is the real pernicious thing about this whole argument to me, is that there is a solution here that doesn't require voter shaming. The solution could be ranked choice voting. Just do that. Allow people to vote Green Party if they want to. Oh, we didn't get enough votes for the Green Party candidate to be worthwhile. Those votes will go to now the next percentage candidate. So it's instant runoff voting. That would just allow people to vote for who they want, and you wouldn't have this spoiler effect. We'd effectively get rid of this first past the post voting. This was introduced, House Resolution 3057, last year. But it started with 3 sponsors and only has picked up 2 sponsors in the last year. Democrats just don't want to enact this solution to the problem. They want to complain on this line of reasoning, which is fallacious on its face.
You know, I want to mention something right here and right now. Many of our allies, Canada, member countries of the European Union, Great Britain, Australia, and other first world democracies, they have a strong, vibrant, multi-party system, an actual democracy in which you have various parties, just more than just 2 of our neoliberal system that we have here. And I can't help but remember in 2016 when me and Daniel were in Philadelphia, well, the Democratic Party did such a fantastic job reaching out to the Bernie supporters as well as the Green Party supporters by basically attacking them, yelling at them, putting
Having the
them to shame.
police point assault rifles and sniper rifles at them.
Right,
the
right.
audacity of trying to talk to the media.
But there's a bigger picture here. If the Democratic Party is going to be attacking a party that has almost literally no power at all and keeps on kicking them down, what makes you think that they're going to fall in line and vote for your candidate?
It would never happen.
No, in fact, it's going to strengthen them and say, well, no, we're going to continue building our third party. This is also going to be an aspect with DSA, too, along the road, where they maybe not now, but given a few years, they themselves can become a strong political party, too. Currently, they're a political organization. The same thing goes for the Libertarians, too. Look, I support third parties, so I believe that they should be on the debate stage. That there should be more than just two podiums, but there should be 5, 6, 7, so that people can actually hear different ideas, different solutions, and how we can actually work together, come together to have a real solution to deal with the issues that many Americans are dealing with. So I don't know what the Democratic Party is so afraid of, but you know what I think? I think they're just trying to scapegoat their problems onto another group, which is just as stupid and dumb, and it shows how inept, how incompetent they are. Blaming the Green Party, blaming Susan Sarandon, blaming libertarians, blaming anyone who's not them or falling in line to vote for their party. The Democratic Party needs to evolve and change. They need to follow the platform that Bernie Sanders is pushing for, or what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is pushing for. But no, what they do is they keep on shooting themselves in the foot, which is ignorant and dumb. And I, for one, believe that it's time that we have third parties on the debate stage. There is a system nationwide and at the state level that stops third parties from being on the debate stage. We've had many third-party candidates and groups on our show. I remember in January in 2018 when we first started, that was our year of our month of recognizing third parties and what they can do and contribute. But across the board, you know what they say? There's always a mountain that we have to climb over. And especially here in Illinois, where there are strict draconian laws stopping third-party candidates from being on a debate stage, from being on the ballot. Look, to the Democratic Party, if you really want to implement change, start addressing your own issues first. Stop taking corporate money. Stop, voting with the Republicans. Actually stand for something. But for some reason, they won't do it. So it shows ignorance on their part. And the Democratic Party will continue to lose, continue to fail, and third parties will continue to push forward.
So I think the last point I want to make on this is that if the Democrats are so sure that the Greens are nothing more than a fringe party that shouldn't be paid attention to, why not have them on the debate stage? If you're right, you're going to expose them for frauds, and then everyone will go, why did I ever think about voting in the Green Party?
What are you afraid of?
Why would I ever do that?
They're going to be exposed because all it simply is we are a party literally defined that we're the Green Party. We want a Green New Deal. It's simple as that. Why would we vote for a party that littered our country with pipelines? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the Democrats are so sure that they're a fringe party, they should have no issue just having them on the stage. I mean, if they are right, then everyone will be, wow, why would anyone vote for a Green Party? I'm listening to them speak, and they're ridiculous. Rather than with what happened with Jill Stein when she tried to attend a presidential debate and she was handcuffed to a chair, a presidential candidate.
And same thing happened in 2016 when Jill Stein was trying to be on a debate stage too. They wouldn't let her. Same thing for Gary Johnson. Wouldn't let him either. So, as we look at this, I'm going to say this. Eventually, over time, third parties will have a stronger role. 40% of Americans identify themselves as independents. And as far as I'm concerned, if the Democrats and Republicans are so confident in themselves, have the Libertarians and Greens and DSA, Socialist Alternative, on the debate stage. Talk to them. And if you think you
the
can
thing
beat
is,
them,
they aren't that confident in themselves.
No.
They can't have these other voices on the stage with them because it will challenge their terrible ideas.
Yeah.
And they can't have their terrible ideas challenged. They want to give us this very narrow scope of this is the only important thing to talk about because we're going to have our war.
Yeah.
We're going to have our bailouts for major companies. We're going to have our corporatist little system here, and we can't have any outside voices disrupting that.
I mean,
that's what they're saying.
When it literally comes down to that, it's a great point because what is discussed on the national stage, if you just saw a democracy or American democracy from the outside looking in and you only saw it through TV news, you would think that the only things Americans disagreed on were abortion rights, gun control rights, and a few other issues that have been fought over. You'd say, wow, I guess they agree on everything else. But to Paul's point, it's because the discussion is so condensed.
Yeah.
But I think on that, we got to go to another story.
Yes, another story that we are following, and it's a local story here in the city of Chicago, and it's impacting the 12th Ward. We've talked about this on last show as well as a few previous shows. We've covered a few town hall events, and this has to deal with the asphalt plant that is built in the 12th Ward by McKinley Park. McKinley Park is a 63-acre green space. There are 3 schools in this area. It's a large residential area. There's a community center as well as a large open pool. And this asphalt plant was built without the community knowing. And, last show I actually read a letter from the alderman how he has no power or jurisdiction. So the day before yesterday, I attended a town hall meeting with Illinois State Senator Tony Muenzo, who was basically addressing the concerns and what he can do possibly to make sure this doesn't happen again. The community first is angry. They're upset. They're vocal about it because no one told them. I want to make this very clear again. I mean, imagine how you would feel if you're running in your park or you're taking your kid to school and all of a sudden there's an asphalt plant there. Well, how did it get there? And who let that happen? Did that area get rezoned? And the answer is yes, it did get rezoned. The asphalt plant still does not have a functioning website as we currently speak right now. It is made up of 3 different companies. One of the owners has donated huge amounts of money to Alderman Cardenas' campaign in the past, so he has connections with this asphalt plant in particular. It's also important to note that at the National Latino Educational Institute, where this forum was held at, it was interesting to hear one of the administrators who was at this town hall state that their parking lot is no longer theirs. It belongs to the asphalt plant, guys. Isn't that fantastic? And, it was interesting to know when the asphalt plant managers we're speaking to the crowd, and I urge all of you to listen to this town hall meeting. It's on our YouTube channel as well as our Spreaker account, Twitter as well. The community first, as soon as he got on the stage, he brought the 3 different materials that he uses, and he was shot down immediately. Everyone's saying, like, don't put that up there. We're tired of hearing how you're bringing jobs or everything else. No, you came here without telling us. It was one person in particular said, why don't you introduce yourself to the community? They never introduced themselves, and they indicated that everything that they did was legal. Now, the Illinois EPA was there as well, and unfortunately, I'm sad to say this, the Illinois EPA approved of this because according to the asphalt plant, or at least according to the contract, what they did was legal. See, the Illinois EPA has very little teeth right now to really stop this plant from being built. So they didn't really have any say. All they saw was that the asphalt plant filled in the proper notifications. Now, the problem is that the alderman failed to inform the people. No one told any of the agencies here in the city of Chicago or in the state of Illinois that this asphalt plant was going to be built. There was no introduction. It's like I walk into one of your houses and just make the mess and say, okay, bye. Without even introducing myself, without even doing anything, you're going to probably wonder, well, who are you and why are you doing this?
Well,
like
the building engineer let me in.
Yeah, the building engineer.
It's not even that you made a mess and then left.
Right,
It's
you
you made a
heard
mess
them.
and then just said, "Hey, you can't stop me."
Now it's also important to note that this asphalt plant, or at least what they're stating is that they're following all the rules for the EPA and that their plant doesn't, that it's not going to pollute. Well, the thing is, there's this thing called particulate matter, all right? And this is something that's done, or at least a byproduct released by an asphalt plant, or at least construction of creating asphalt, where it affects young people and old people, causes cardiac problems, breathing problems, asthma, you name it. And the very fact that it's smack dab in the middle is a serious issue. But another thing to bring out is that there's going to be heavy truck traffic. And one of the main entrances is actually right there by the school. So it's just getting right in past the National Latino Educational Institute. Those trucks going through there. Now, the owner was saying that it's not going to happen, but the community just booed that down right away because there's 39th Street and then there's Damon Avenue, which they did. And what was funny, and I wish a few of my colleagues were there, because as soon as the manager of the asphalt plant said that, no, we did a wonderful job on Damon Avenue, everyone yelled at him and said, no, it's a... Well, I can't say it online, but they did a crappy job. That's what they said. You did a crappy job on Damon, and everyone was laughing at him. Everyone was saying that no, you're lying. So here's what the end result is, and it's very important to note this as well. And actually, we had our new recent follower on Twitter actually put some partial transcripts of this town hall on our Twitter page. He actually commented on where we made our tweet of this town hall. One, this asphalt plant has a 1-year temporary lease on the area. So people have basically 1 year to try and remove this facility out. Once that 1 year passes, they're kind of there, which is bad news for a lot of people because the community is upset. That room was packed with a lot of vocal, angry citizens who are probably not going to vote for the current alderman in 2019. So, and another issue, too, is that area was rezoned. But who has the power to rezone that area? Daniel, who has the power to rezone areas?
Well, I believe that is one of the things that Chicago aldermen get to do.
Now, you get out of here. Don't you dare say that. I mean, in the letter, he said he had
He's
no
not
power.
Responsible.
Yeah, are you kidding? I got the letter right here. I'm going to read it again one more time. I write, this is the second paragraph, I write to address the misconceptions surrounding the asphalt plant that moved into the neighborhood this past spring. The owners received the necessary permits to operate from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agencies. Since the plant is located in a planned manufacturing district, I had no jurisdiction to review or approve any permit associated with this development. However, some individuals have used this situation as an opportunity to spread politically motivated rumors and advance their agenda through fear-mongering. I've met with some numerous environmental experts, and the Illinois EPA has confirmed that the low-impact design of this plant will meet or exceed the latest air quality standards. The plant is now fully operational, and readings from the particulate matter sensors placed around our community confirm that this development does not pose a public health or environmental hazard. I encourage you to also monitor these readings via Purple Air. I want to let everyone remember that when the crowd heard this, or especially when the crowd was addressing the Illinois State Senator as well as the Illinois EPA as well as the managers of the asphalt plant, what people were saying is our health is radical. Our health needs to be protected because there's going to be heavy truck traffic. And who knows if this asphalt plant was built to the regulations necessary to make sure that there is no byproduct released.
Also, the stations that he's taking credit for intentionally in that letter were put together by the community, not the government. So he's using the community's own efforts to capture this work as his own. It's like, oh, I put this in for safety. And again, this is in the area that this district is in, this ward is in. He's the alderman. He's the most powerful person controlling it. He's basically saying, that's like a king saying, well, I mean, the keep that got put up, I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't aware of it. I couldn't have stopped it. I mean, I'm not that powerful. I mean, I'm just the king.
Yeah.
What can I do? That's all he's really saying is that an alderman who controls zoning, had no control over the zoning of this area. And also, we haven't mentioned the fact again that I'm sure it was a complete and utter coincidence that he's taken money from the owner of the asphalt plant.
One of the owners. Remember, this is a company. This is 3 different companies. They don't have a functioning website, so no one knows really what their whole deal is. So, yeah, great to find out information about them online. A real smart way to introduce yourself to the community. So when the community wants to know who you are, well, good luck. And
whining and saying you're a victim when you're putting poison in people's yards, and then their children are going to wind up ill, and it's their fault, and you're yelling at them.
Yeah, one of the problems with this pollution, especially from the trucks that are going to be bringing in the material. So not only is there truck exhaust, heavy truck traffic that's going to be coming into this green area, there's also going to be their byproduct that they're carrying, as well as the product that the asphalt plant is carrying. People are upset, and the groups that are really standing out to really address this issue, and who actually have the purple air monitors in check to basically keep the readings, accountable. There's Neighbors for Environmental Protection, the 12th Ward IPO, as well as the McKinley Park Progressive Alliance. And these three groups are really trying to help the community out and stand up for the community, because the alderman, guess what? He wasn't there. He wasn't also there at the other meeting. Now, the Illinois State Senator Tony Menzo was there, and he's just as upset as everyone else is. Now, the thing is, he's working on legislation to try and make sure that this doesn't happen again. But this is a city issue, and how do we address this city issue? One, we're going to probably have to vote that guy out, Alderman Cardenas, out, because he has stated that he's for creating green spaces and making the city green. Well, that's kind of contradictory to what you've just allowed to be built in your own backyard, an asphalt plant. I mean, where's Mayor Rahm Emanuel? Even Mayor Rahm Emanuel wants to make this city green, but I don't see. Probably he's dancing in Lollapalooza. I mean, we've all seen that meme right now where he's just dancing around, not doing anything. So, this goes to show you that this is a city issue, and in order for there to be real change, people are going to get involved. But the one thing that kind of brought almost a tear to my eye was when the community, were saying we need to protest and picket, and that's probably what's going to have to take. People are going to have to be protesting the streets around McKinley Park, around 39th Street, around Damon Avenue, and really make their presence known. And that's what I want to say to the people of the 12th Ward. You're going to have to knock on everyone's doors, knock on all the doors, get everyone out. Get everyone out and protest, because by this asphalt plant, there are large residential communities. There are 3 schools. There's a community center, a 63-acre park, an open pool. All of you in the 12th Ward need to protest, need to picket, need to make your voices heard, and in 2019, definitely go out to vote. This is the time for us to flex our power and really make change, because what happened there wasn't right. No one told them about this asphalt plant. But that being said, we're going to move on to another story, and it has to deal with a federal judge declaring policing for profit unconstitutional. So, Daniel, what's happening with this?
So, this is a case where we've talked about civil asset forfeiture a few times on this show's history, and again, the idea of it is that police can charge your property with a crime. So, if you get pulled over and they're like, oh, $5,000, well, we're going to charge that property with the crime. We're not charging you with the crime. We're charging this property, so they take your money, and generally, it costs way more money to prove your property is innocent, which is a very odd thing to say in a democratic nation. And maybe it'll cost you $20,000 with lawyers to prove that $5,000 in cash is legal. So no one does it because it's not worth it, or they don't have the money because you've just taken their money. To give an idea of the scale of civil asset forfeiture, if you take all private thefts, burglaries, anything of that nature that individuals commit against other individuals, it's a smaller amount of money that is taken every year than just civil asset forfeiture. And however, civil asset forfeiture is only dwarfed by corporations not paying their workers, forcing them not to pay for overtime. But so civil asset forfeiture is the police taking money from citizens. And again, it's larger than all citizen thefts. So this is the situation that we're in. So, oh, you're driving in an area, or your music's too loud, or we found drugs in your car. Well, clearly you're a drug dealer and you're using this car as a means to sell these drugs, so we're just going to repossess your car for $20 worth of cannabis, and then when we sell that, we're going to get the money. But that's the other thing about civil asset forfeiture, is that the police generally get to keep the money, and usually there's a lot of instances where maybe $5,000 gets taken from an individual, but only $3,000 gets deposited into the police. So there's a lot of corruption of police actually stealing money for their own personal benefit and then giving whatever's left over to the police department And we've had like instances where they've bought Margaritaville machines to put in the police department. So quite literally a slush fund that civil asset forfeiture is.
Or
so
a slushy fund.
A slushy fund at that. So in this case, you had a New Mexico court that decided that, and a judge that decided that this is ridiculous. So they had already done some cases beforehand that really cut down on the use of civil asset forfeiture, basically saying they couldn't do it with money. So the police were like, fine, we'll just start taking people's cars. And so this new case, the judge said, no, you can't steal people's stuff when they haven't committed a crime. You have to first have that person go through the judicial process. After they go through the judicial process, you can then tell them, okay, you've been found guilty for X, Y, and Z. Now we're going to take these funds or whatever it is that you use to do whatever illegal crime that we just convicted you of. You can't just take their car and say, sucks, you're going to have to walk back. You haven't done anything wrong, but your car has. So, guys, this is a step forward in a single state, but the point that we get from this is that it starts to develop a little bit of court precedent. And again, there is more money taken from citizens, from police using civil asset forfeiture, than there is from citizens committing burglaries or robberies, everything of that combined.
This is a really positive court ruling, and it's in the right direction because almost everywhere else in the country, and this has been going on for decades, this is one of the only areas in law where we treat everything sort of backwards. It's not innocent until proven guilty. It's the government making an accusation that some property that you owned was involved in a crime in some way, but then the burden of proof is put on the other person to disprove that accusation. That's just not the way logic works. Like, if you accuse someone of something or you make a claim, you have the burden of proof, not the other person.
Rebecca?
It's not really a legitimate policy. It's just them demonizing people that are, less powerful. In Illinois, law enforcement takes more than $319 million on forfeited property over the last decade. So this was in 2016, published by the Chicago Tribune. So $319 million of innocent Illinois people that, even if you are convicted of a crime, why should you have everything you own stolen from you? Anything that's in your car? I mean, that's the livelihood of a lot of people.
They need that margarita, guys. They need that margarita machine. I'm sorry.
That's another fantastic point, though, that builds onto this. Because if the point of a judicial system is to get bad people off the streets and then rehabilitate them so they can become good citizens, you've taken away their ability. So if you take someone's car, then they can't go to work. And if they can't go to work, then they get fired. And if they're fired, they don't have an income. And if they don't have an income, then a lot of people are forced to do stuff that isn't legal to get enough money just to be able to eat. And so then when people start doing that, then they become criminals. Then the police rearrest them. And that's why our recidivism in the U.S. is basically one of the highest on the planet in terms of with first world nations. And so then they go back in prison, and they're reoffending. So then the judge gives them a harsher sentence. So then they're stuck in prison, which costs about $5 an hour generally, depending on what jail you're at, to house an inmate. So then people have to pay about $60,000 a year in taxpayer money to put someone in prison, to maintain someone's sentence in prison for a crime that they committed because their car got taken away a number of years ago.
But it helps the private prison industry. So, that's the ultimate motive. Demonize the poor all the time.
The United States, a rich and powerful country that has incarcerated more people than any other democracy in the free world.
Even not even democracies. China's like, wow, you guys have a lot of people in prison, says us with 3 times the population as you.
And even Putin probably has to put his word in and says, wow, you guys really do like to lock people up.
And 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's incarcerated population.
And so, even in China right now, I believe that 1 million Muslims are in the equivalent of almost a concentration camp, because they're cracking down. That's a story we haven't even talked about. That's not even on the roster for today, but that's a huge issue. That doesn't even come to more than 30-ish% of the people that the U.S. puts in prison.
Oh my gosh. And we have more black Americans in jail today than we had slaves back when that was a thing.
It's as if we made some progress by redefining something, but we've just expanded the pool of people. Again, it's like we were talking, we don't have this on the docket today, but there was a tweet that the California Fire Department was bragging that they had 2,000 inmates that were getting $1 $2 an hour plus $1 a day to fight fires,
Right.
which is very dangerous. And then they're like,
Yeah.
hey, can we become firefighters since we have this experience? No, you're a felon. Of course you can't.
Wow. So after that and
Risking
and,
their lives.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
look, and that fire that's happening there in California is a huge danger. But you got these guys out there, these prisoners, who, look, I don't know their whole story, but I mean, we do. This country believes in second chances, and these people who are out there fighting these fires are
Yeah.
prisoners, but they're risking their lives to protect homeowners,
Yeah.
businesses, communities.
Some of them are even actually juveniles at that, from juveniles.
And so they're fighting, and when they ask a simple question, can we become firefighters? The answer is no. What? No.
And it's because if you-
I would say if I was in charge, I'd be like, I'd take all of you. Come on board. We need you.
And so the thing is that the way that they're doing that, they're saving this. Californians like, we saved like $60 or $80 million by making that decision and not actually hire. And that's another thing that people are complaining about low wages. Firefighters not a bad wage to have, and I'm sure you can find people to do it. But they're like, no, we'll just use prisoners. It's cheap and they're expendable. They're prisoners. No one will care about them. No one will care about the children that we put in.
You know what?
And then-
I care. I care.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing, that to go into the reason to be a firefighter, you generally need an EMT license, and an EMT license is only given to people that aren't felons. So
Right,
again,
we
it's the
need-
same thing. It's the same cycle. Once you go in prison, I believe the number is you lose 30,000 or 100,000 rights on a state and federal level, or they're diminished in some way.
I think what we're scratching the surface of here is our criminal justice system goes far beyond being rehabilitative, which is what they often claim to be, and goes way into territory of being just strictly punitive.
Right. We need to rehash the whole system. That's what we say when we want to abolish private prisons. We want to change the whole prison system so that, let's picture it like a prison is actually a school. So these people can go in and learn to become better people, learn not to make the same mistakes, have skills to come out, and if they want to become ENTs when they're in prison and they want to become firefighters, they
should
can
be
actually
allowed
be
to.
taught in prison, and then when they come out, they're just contributing that much more to our society.
Yeah. So I know we're reaching the end of our first hour. We're going to have to take a break real quick.
We have time for one more. We can go to about 12.
Okay, so Paul, I want you to take charge of this. It has to deal with how CNN was trying to troll Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What happened?
Well, it's really more than just CNN. You'll find this amongst most all of the mainstream media outlets, and if, as most of us are aware, there was some primary election results from this past week, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders went out and endorsed a lot of candidates in a lot of different states and a lot of different races. And the way most of this is being reported is, haha, all your candidates lost. This progressive movement is dying. Done before it even started. You guys are losers. And it's like, well, hang on. Yeah, okay, some of the most high-profile candidates didn't secure victories, right? Abdul al-Sayed didn't come away with a win for his primary for the gubernatorial race in Michigan. He started in single digits, though. Like, he kind of did really well considering that he was a relative unknown just a couple months ago. We had another race that we lost another one that hurt a little bit was the Brent Welder race. But what often doesn't get reported is, of the 12 or 15 races that, organizations like Justice Democrats, Brand New Congress, Our Revolution were supporting, that brand of sort of progressive, socialistic type candidate, we came away with a roughly 50% win record. And some of them were really, really unexpected races. So some of them were more expected. So like Thompson's race in Pompeo's old seat, he won by 30 points. And that's one that a lot of establishment media is not even giving credit to. Like, yeah, Cortez endorsed him. And you're going around saying that none of the candidates that Cortez endorsed won. He won by 30 points in a deeply red district. That's important to note. The other one that was really big is what is her name? Tlaib in Michigan's
Rashida Tlaib. Yep.
Rashida Tlaib. Yeah, that's a huge win.
Michigan 13.
Michigan's 13th. That's right. That was unexpected. We weren't expecting a win in that seat. That was a highly contested race.
You also had Schoolcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We had a number of really, really good victories. I'm not saying this was a landslide win for socialistic progressives.
It kind of felt like really good, honestly.
Yeah, but it's a respectable showing.
Just speaking for Justice Democrats, I don't have the numbers memorized for all the other groups, but
Right.
Justice Democrats won 7 and lost 6.
Yeah, so that's more than 50%.
Yeah.
Our revolution candidates, at least 12 wins there. It was just...
You know what this shows me, and this is going to be like the final note because we do have to go on our break. It just goes to show me that the progressive candidates, DSA, Our Revolution, Justice Democrats, brand new Congress, they're not going anywhere.
Yep.
If you think they're going to be ashamed by CNN or ABC or NBC or any other corporate media
you
outlets,
must think the Greens are going to start voting Democratic.
Yeah. I mean, no, they're not going anywhere. They're not going to forget 2016. They're not going to forget the fact that the DNC establishment worked with the Clinton campaign to commit election fraud to deny Bernie Sanders the nomination. People want change. Now, look, they're going to try and reform the Democratic Party, but if the Democratic Party doesn't get its act together, be prepared for more third-party and progressive groups to challenge that power. Because if the DNC fails to adapt and evolve, be prepared for more defeats, DNC.
I want to let Paul, you had a quote that you brought up a while back. I'd like you to send us out with that quote.
Yeah, so we were talking before about how, we end up in this, very narrow discussion, that we're allowed to have. And this is a Noam Chomsky quote from his book, The Common Good. The smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but allow very lively debate within that spectrum. And that's exactly what we have. We don't want to hear from Greens. We don't want to hear from Libertarians because they're going to upset the apple cart. We want to have a very narrow debate about, I don't know, some very specific gun control regulation.
Yeah.
Or Russiagate, which let me just point out that Brett Welder was winning before the whole debacle of the election machines, not knowing what happened, they broke or something. Where are the Democrats screaming about, election reform and hacking and stuff?
Hey, but their
that's
candidate
part
won.
of their conversation.
Their candidate won, so it was perfectly fine. This is exactly what they expected to happen. It doesn't matter if the machines broke down and that the votes were then everyone that won when they went in lost when they came out. I'm sure that wasn't an issue.
Right. So with that being said, we're going to take our break. If you like what we do and support independent media, Heartlands Media has a Patreon page. Your support is the main heart and backbone to everything that we do. Other than that, guys, peace, and we'll see you in the second hour. Hey, everyone, this is Kit. Welcome to the second hour. We are back. We've got a lot of stories to cover, as well as have our guests who will be joining us very shortly. But right now, I want to pass this story over to Paul and Daniel, and this has to deal with a very controversial character, Alex Jones, who was recently kicked off of YouTube, Facebook, and iTunes. Paul, you'll start off. What is happening with this whole censorship of Alex Jones?
Yeah, this is a weird story. I think a lot of people have heard at least some part of it this week. But there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of facets to it, and there's a lot sort of to be made clear up front. So if you're not familiar, I don't know how you can not be familiar, but if you're not familiar with Alex Jones, he is kind of a crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist, nut job sort of guy. He said some extremely inflammatory things about Sandy Hook. He's made some threats. There are lawsuits that are involved with that. But like we said, this week, he's basically been deplatformed. He's kicked off of YouTube. He was kicked off of Facebook, Apple, and Spotify. So this is a couple of points keep getting made about this. People will say, how come he hasn't been kicked off Twitter yet? He said so many inflammatory things, he should be kicked off of there too. He's so bad. He's so bad.
And just very quickly, to give an idea, if you haven't heard about this, again, he's said that Sandy Hook was a complete fraud, that all the parents that lost their kids are actually just crisis actors who are doing nothing more than taking money from the globalist government, which of course is a thinly veiled attack on Jews in general. It's a very strong dog whistle that's used on that. And so the case that's kind of pertaining to this is this one family who lost their child, and they have had to move, I think, 6 or 7 times because their address will get published, and then they'll get harassed by his listeners saying that they're nothing more than crisis actors and their son never existed. And so therefore...
And he was, involved in the Pizzagate thing and inspired people to go and shoot up a pizza joint in D.C.
He's done a lot of really horrendous things.
Right. And I'm got to come out in front of this and say we're not defending that. What I'm saying is this is a person who has been effectively censored from what a lot of people are calling the public square. Like in this new social media world, YouTube is an important outlet for someone to say what they want to say. Facebook is an important outlet for that.
iTunes as well.
Those are not government entities.
No.
These are private companies that do have the right to issue terms of service and, kick people off of their platform when they violate those terms of service. I understand that. What I'm not saying that this is against the First Amendment, because it's not a government entity silencing this person. It's a private, unelected entity that is silencing this person. And there's no accountability to the people on this. What I'm saying is, okay, maybe you don't like what Alex Jones has to say. I agree. The way to combat Alex Jones is to point out his bad ideas,
with speech,
not to censor him, because eventually that censorship tool could be turned against anyone. It could be turned against us. It could be turned against voices we agree with.
It already has been on
And
YouTube. There's been lots of censorship and demonetization.
So I want to go a little bit into that right now. So people talk about, if you just see it as just Alex Jones being taken down, that's one thing. But what's not talked about is already over 100 liberal or progressive pages, events, channels have been taken down that no one's really talked about. You've had you've had marches by, I believe, Black Lives Matter in, I want to say South Carolina, that Facebook has just decided, no, that doesn't exist, and they've canceled and removed the page. You've had a number of groups we covered a while back, how pro-cannabis groups were just wiped off, that had millions of subscribers have just been wiped off of YouTube. There have been over 100 groups in individual channels on the left that have been taken out. I would argue that the censorship that is epitomized with Alex Jones in this example is actually much stronger on the left than it is on the right. And what has happened, here's the issue, that we talked about the Green Party earlier and how when the Democratic Party chastises the Green Party and the people that voted for the Green Party for voting, all you're doing is entrenching them in that same position. Whereas with Alex Jones, he went from being kicked off those platforms, but all of a sudden he is number 4 on the App Store, where he was previously number 39. This is a guy, as Paul mentioned, is a great conspiracy theorist in terms of he's very widely listened to, and he's been saying for years, the globalists are going to come after me, the corporations are going to come after me and silence me, the government's going to come after me and silence me.
Obama's turning my frogs gay.
Obama's turning the frogs gay. Chemtrails are... He's saying all these things, and all that they've done by kicking him off these is prove him right to his audience.
You legitimize the crazy madman.
Yeah, and so from their point of view, he said, the government's going to shut me down, these corporations are going to shut me down. So what do? They shut him down. Now he's going to have, the best case scenario that comes out of this is he doesn't get a lot of new audience, but his current audience believes him 10 times more. Because now they say, oh, the government went after him. He must be a real threat to the government. That's why he took them down. That's his entire message. So that's the best case scenario, is you've made his audience way more impassioned towards him. The worst case scenario is this is one step towards a Facebook executive being able to knock anyone off the platform that they don't like.
Right. I want everyone to rewind back the clocks to way back in 2003, before the Iraq War happened. Remember when Phil Donahue voiced his opinion about why we shouldn't go to war? And what did NBC do? Oh, they didn't let him speak. They got rid of him. And my problem is this: as soon as you censor somebody like Alex Jones, who we disagree with on everything, they're going to come after progressives. Look what CNN did to Jimmy Dore, who was on our show recently.
They grouped him in with Alex Jones. They he's the same.
They grouped him into that group. And also anyone who's going to probably be against this. Remember the war in Syria? Well, at first I thought the corporate media was against Trump, but as soon as he started bombing those areas, they were foaming at the mouth saying how presidential he was. But as soon as progressives or liberals or even some conservative groups were saying, no, we don't want war with Syria, they were being silenced. Yeah, or even this build up to this war with Iran, which I hope doesn't happen. How much you want to bet that the corporate media is going to be drumming the beat for war and wanting to have this military conflict with Iran? And what about all the progressives or conservative or libertarian groups or socialist groups that are going to be saying no war with Iran? They're going to be silenced. Every time that we, even when we have some posts on Facebook, it doesn't gain a lot of traction, especially some of our original content, because there's a censorship on original content. Same thing for YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, or even on other media platforms. This is a danger.
It's an establishment bias.
So here's the thing that's what Kit's saying. We post 4 news articles a day that we curate and we think are good for everyone to listen to. Those posts, Facebook will let maybe 2 to 5 times more people in our audience see that post than a piece of work that we've spent hours putting together.
Yeah.
When we write it ourselves, it gets less exposure.
When we write it ourselves, it gets less exposure. When we do a video on something that's happened, trying to show people an alderman that's doing something or introduce a candidate that's running for government office, that gets a fifth, maybe less, as many people will see that because Facebook, the algorithm, controls what happened. But if we post something from New York Times or Politico or Washington Post, it gets tons of views.
Right, and I also want to give a shout-out to our 3 editors who have been working very hard on our content. And look, that's original content and news that should be shared. It's from local stories to even big national stories that should gain a lot of traction and following. And same thing for our writer who works his butt off to make sure that these articles get posted. I mean, but there's an establishment bias. And this is a danger, especially in a republic, a democracy that should be championing free speech. As soon as you silence somebody like Alex Jones, they're going to come after everyone else. And this is and look, I know I sound like Alex Jones when I say they're going to come after everyone else, but truthfully, they will, and they're going to do it. And as an independent media outlet here in the city of Chicago, we're covering stories that corporate media doesn't cover. If they start censoring progressive groups, well, then goodbye to that because we use Facebook, we use YouTube, we're on iTunes, we're on Twitter, and we're on Spreaker and Instagram, and we have our own personal website too. But if they silence us, well, then how are you going to know about these stories about this corrupt city that we have or this corrupt government or issues that are affecting states that are neighboring us? We were in Wisconsin and Indiana covering huge stories that corporate media maybe gave like a 5 or 2 minute spin on, and that's it. That is it. And this should anger everyone. And I know, again, we're not defending Alex Jones here, but the very fact that they went after him, who has a very large following, they're going to come after everyone else. Lee Camp, Jimmy Dore, Tim Black, Nico House, TYT, they're going to come after those guys too. And don't think that they won't, because they will. And
they just show that they'll take down a nationally syndicated radio host. Again, disgusting person, but someone with that amount, because really from their point of view, it's how much power does this person have? How easy will it be for us to make them go away? Jones is a very, very, very big name, and so if they can take down him, everyone else is fair game.
TYT, Lee Camp, Nico House, all of them, man.
I think we're dancing around the topic here a little bit. We're laying down the foundation and saying, look, this is an effective censorship. We're giving this power to private companies, and they have, basically the legal authority to do this because it's their private platform. But I'm going to sit here and make the case we should probably have a conversation in this country about regulating these giant social media platforms that are now effectively the public commons, right? When telephones came around, we decided, you know what? A company shouldn't have the ability to say, I don't like that guy. Nobody can call him. He can't make phone calls. You know what? When electricity started becoming commercialized, we decided, you know what? Everyone kind of needs this.
Yeah.
It's what we try to do with the internet. It seems plausible that we can say, you know what? This private company is so important to the public that it must fall under public guidelines. And that's already happening in the Alex Jones case. We're talking about, hey, if there was a true breach of the First Amendment, right, there is actually a limit to speech. What's funny about this is that the legal precedent comes from like a 1790 case where what we call today inciting violence. The original legal words for it were fighting words. So, totally true. So if someone is involved in fighting words or inciting violence, yes, there could be a legal case against that. There is in the case of Alex Jones and his words on Sandy Hook. That's the legal recourse for saying someone is saying something in public that is causing physical harm to people. That's the recourse for that, not allowing a private company to silence a person.
Even defamation, which he's also being sued for as well.
Right. Yeah. This is basically not against the First Amendment, but this action is against the principles of freedom of speech.
Rebecca?
Right. So I think that basically the corporations don't follow laws, right? Like, they don't follow the laws of the American people. They can do pretty much anything to people. So in this case, the argument for them is they don't want to have the bad publicity of being supported. They don't want to be tied to Alex Jones and all these lawsuits and stuff. Okay, you can see their point of view, and you can see the people that are being harassed. They're probably pushing for him to be deplatformed. Yes, but let's just draw the line at the law, which would mean okay, maybe you want to take down that one video where he says the name of the Sandy Hook person, or, you know, whatever it is, the thing that you really is being debated is evidence for the law used in the court of law. We'll take down that, and until it's, you know, after further review, after the court case is done. Okay, so that doesn't mean you take down his whole platform. I mean, we've just created a martyr of Alex Jones, which I think is just totally insane and disgusting. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Paul, that it should be a public utility. You know, the right's argument of this is just hilarious because they're the ones that get so riled up. They think that they're being demonetized more than the left. They really do. And I think they are being demonetized also. But I think it started with progressive groups, because you didn't start hearing progressives or the right complaining about this until maybe like 6 months ago. Which we've been dealing with it for longer than that.
Diamond and Silk is really when that first started, and they were complaining that they were getting knocked down on Facebook, even if you look at the numbers.
I remember, like, wow, we've been dealing with this for a while. Yeah. So I think that it's just funny that they, you know, this is the argument against having corporate monopolies running wild. They don't have to go by any of the laws, and now I think we finally have an argument for regulation and why that would actually be beneficial to us.
So I want to say that I think what really needs to come out of this is, to that point, have them made a public utility so that they can't just, on their own whim, knock someone off.
Right.
But there should also be a process developed. It's like, I also understand that, hey, if a company wants to kick someone off, I understand that is a reasonable sentiment. If we had a guest that we brought onto the show, a hypothetical guest, who just went nuts, it would seem fair that we could say, yeah, we're going to either go to break and cut them off or something. But that's never been the case with us.
Right. No, we haven't had that. But
I think that we also need is twofold. They need to be viewed as a public utility, but then they also have to have a process because I think that Alex Jones, if there was an actual process that they went through, no one would be complaining about this. If there was a process where Facebook said, okay, we think this is an issue, he shouldn't be on the platform, we think he's violating our terms and service, but he's set up his business on this platform, let's go to a judge, argue our case, have him argue against us and defend himself, and I think the judge would reasonably say, yeah, he shouldn't be on your platform. If that's what they did, I would have no issue with this.
I just want people to be careful when considering what's going on with Alex Jones, not to get caught in the, oh, well, they're a private company, so they're allowed to do it, and just end the thought process there. Because what you end up doing is cheering on and advocating for corporate censorship of American voices,
which the government is
cheering on authoritarianism. Good
the
for
government
you.
Loves that this is an excuse and a pathway for them to carry out their unconstitutional desires of censoring people. They love it.
Right, and you know, this is a dark time we're living in, and this is a clear issue that we're going to have to follow through on, and hopefully no one else gets kicked off, because if they keep on doing this, you know, we could be next too. But other than that, we're going to move on to our guest who is joining us here today. Her name is Stacy Stewart. She is with the organization Desire to Inspire, and she's also with another guest as well. So can I please have you two introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Stacy Stewart from Desire to Aspire. I am the founder of Desire to Aspire, and I'm here with another board member.
Hi, my name is Amanda Henderson. I'm on the board of directors for Desire to Aspire.
So, about this organization, how did Desire to Aspire start? And during its creation, what were some of the initial challenges that your group has faced over the years?
Those are really awesome questions. So I tell people all the time that I didn't start Desire to Aspire on purpose. I was an undergraduate at the University of Missouri. And if you guys know anything about Mizzou, you know that it's a pretty big school. And so I got there and I was kind of overwhelmed. And so I was like, I definitely want to get involved and give back, but I didn't quite know where to start. And so I figured maybe I could just, you know, kind of do some community service, do some service on my own. I tell people all the time I'm an introvert, so, you know, I was cool with kind of sticking to myself. And so I emailed maybe about 6 or 7 elementary and middle schools down in Columbia, Missouri, and just asked if they had any girls that needed like a tutor or a big sister. And being a native of Chicago and a product of CPS, I figured nobody would get back to me anytime soon. But to my surprise, the next day everybody responded. And so I was a little bit overwhelmed because there's no way that being in college, I was going to be able to go to 7 different schools and be, of service to all of these girls. So my friends really encouraged me to find other like-minded women on campus. And so I did. And that's how Desire to Aspire came about. So that's kind of, our story of how we came to be. But in terms of some of the challenges, I think just, starting off, I didn't really have a great vision for the organization because I didn't go in thinking about, hey, we're going to be servicing 70 to 80 girls, and now I have 50 mentors to lead. It was a little bit overwhelming. And so I think kind of finding our footing and really finding a solid vision for what we would be doing with these girls so that when we say, hey, this is what Desire to Aspire does, we can make sure that we're actually in line with those goals and that vision. That was something that was kind of initially hard. And now that we've, gotten a little bit larger, I think, of course, a lot of issues that nonprofits face is funding. And so finding ways to fund this programming. Since the inception of Desire to Aspire, I started this organization in about 2011. I was a sophomore at University of Missouri. I've been funding a lot of our programming. So when our girls need snacks or when we need supplies for our activities, I pay for those things. And we have definitely been, in awesome situations. I have some sponsors, so people who will donate certain items to us, which means the world. But I think that that's probably our next biggest challenge is getting funding.
Right. And Amanda, how did you first learn about this organization, and what have you seen in regards for helping out these young students, especially these young women, get education or get mentorship in programs, and what have you faced in regards to helping out Desire to Aspire?
So I was introduced to Desire to Aspire through Stacy. So I actually met Stacy in 2006, I think. So I've known Stacy for a very long time before the inception of Desire to Aspire was even, put in her head. So that's really how I was introduced. I did not go to Mizzou with Stacy. I went to DePaul. So I was sort of just on the phone, on Skype, just listening to her talk about the struggle to get funding, to kind of come up with lesson plans, to get the 7 tenets laid out for Desire to Aspire. So those were the struggles that I heard, and that's how I was introduced to it. So I don't actually go inside of the classrooms with Desire to Aspire. So like I said, I'm on the board of directors. So I'm really in the background, trying to help. Let's figure out where we can find funding. Where can we do fundraising? How can we network? How can we make Desire to Aspire known so that we can eventually get some impact into these girls' lives? If we need to expand, where should we go? What do these girls need to succeed in this next generation, in the time that we're living in, and the sort of girls that we're trying to target, what do they need to succeed? So that's sort of where I'm at with Desire to Aspire. So I can't say I'm in the classrooms with them.
Yeah, Desire to Aspire, it just sounds like it's a great example of women organizing now to eventually take over. Like, I'm sorry, guys, but women are taking over. There's a record-breaking number of women running for elected offices and positions of power, and it's so reassuring to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about leadership, and that's something that we definitely talk about within our curriculum. So we do have 7 tenets or principles, and all of these are things that are classified as social emotional learning skills. And so in Illinois and in Missouri, we have these things called SEL standards. And so Desire to Aspire's approach is to really hit on some of these targets or standards, because it's really impossible for our schools to be teaching our kids everything that they need to know, and also be working on their emotional intelligence at the same time. And so as a part of that, a big part of our programming is leadership and community service. So one thing that we work with our girls to do is, one, to form these leadership skills so that they can go off, if they want to start their own businesses, organizations, run for office, but also being community minded. So we are a service-based organization. That's what we believe in. And so we also teach that to our girls and help them figure out, okay, what does community mean, not only on a local level, but on a global level? And then how can you affect change? So working with them on service projects and things like that.
Now, in your mission statement, you guys talk about how enriching the lives of underprivileged and minority girls and women, and instilling the importance of sisterhood and responsibility, self-awareness, and also teaching them about making decision-making, as well as, avoiding high-risk behaviors such as drug or alcohol or violence. And what I want to ask you guys is, during this time, creating this organization, I think about 7 years you guys have been active, what have you seen in regards to the impact this organization has done to help young women? Have you seen people say, if it wasn't for this organization, I would not be here. If it wasn't for this organization, I would be here. Can you give us some examples of what have you seen firsthand in the amount of times you guys have been around?
Definitely. So one thing that I get very often, and it warms my heart, we also work with a school in Evanston, Illinois, and we utilize Northwestern students as our mentors. And so it's been awesome because I'm no longer in Columbia, Missouri. I'm here in Chicago. So it's given me an opportunity to still stay involved in the classroom and still stay involved with our parents. And just some of the testimonies that you hear from parents, even right now, about kids learning how to make good friendships, right? And how to establish deep interpersonal relationships with other individuals at school has been totally amazing. Girls waking up and being way more excited about going to school because of the program, having friends, and also just having more leadership quality. So even small things like our girls going up for lead positions in plays, running for office in school has been totally amazing to hear these parents' testimonies of that. Going back a little bit further, now we have seen some of our girls graduating high school in Columbia, Missouri, and that has been amazing. Seeing them graduate and going off to college is beautiful, and I still try as much as I can to keep in touch with some of those girls. So it's amazing to really see our girls' growth and development in so many different ways. We work with a diverse group of girls, and so their interests and their passions are all a little bit different, but to see them succeeding in those various paths has been absolutely amazing these past 7 years.
I was just going to say that is so touching, and I'm sure you both know that as a woman, if you don't have that mentorship young on, some women don't learn these values or just connect the dots until they're in their late 20s and 30s, and some of us end up running into situations that bring us down and we don't even realize it. So to give them this head start is just so awesome.
Thank you.
Now, Amanda, the same thing in regards, what have you seen and the impact that your organization has done to help out young women? I mean, how has this affected you, and what have you seen firsthand in regards to the changes that this program offers?
So I think it was maybe 2 years ago we did a Women's Empowerment Summit. So it was not only focused on young girls in elementary school, but we focused on young mothers. So another issue is teen pregnancy is extremely high in certain communities, really all over. So we did the Women's Empowerment Summit, and we didn't only focus on teen pregnancies, but also just young women in general. So we had a financial literacy, sort of a health wellness. It was a number of different women that were established in their careers, business owners, dentists, things like that, and we were able to get these group of women together and create our own summit so that they can see, no matter where you are, the cards that you've been dealt, you can sort of find your way out. So just to hear those women sort of, you get this direct feedback after that summit, that was amazing.
Wow. So it's also quite clear. I want to sort of bring this down to maybe a bigger scale or bigger platform. We all know about Chicago. It's a hyper-segregated city, and there are some areas in the city of Chicago and other communities outside the state that are denied resources, especially mostly in African-American, Latino, working-class communities, to where, their schools are shut down, there's a lack of infrastructure, and really a lack of programs that want to, really uplift young people, especially women who are in danger of being, affected by violence, drug use, alcohol abuse. So what kind of reforms, as you're talking to these young women, mentoring them, I'm pretty sure you hear a lot of terrible stories or, things that are very difficult to talk about. What kind of reforms do you think are necessary to ensure that, that there is, I guess, maybe a livable environment, a safe environment for, especially young women to survive and thrive in? Can you guys at least, talk about that?
Yeah, I think that, when we are talking about the school system in general, it's highly flawed, right? And so you are talking about girls and boys who spend majority of their days, 6, 7 hours a day in these schools that definitely need to be reformed, that don't have any resources. And so I think that's something that we don't necessarily talk a lot about, especially in Chicago. You're talking about schools getting funding through property taxes, and we can kind of go down that rabbit hole on how that is, institutionalized inequality that just perpetuates some of these negative or poor outcomes that you see in these communities. And so that's something that I think is going to be very vital and is going to be key, because a lot of these schools have to depend on outside organizations to fill the gaps that they can't fill. Then you have the problem of, well, now, it's harder for nonprofits to give tax deductible receipts to people now with the new tax law. So now people are less likely, middle class people are less likely to donate. Well, now for us, we're filling the gaps, but we need money too to help fund our programming. And so, I think that a lot of, rather that is, working on helping nonprofits, have access to more funds, and also just redoing the way that schools are getting funding is going to be essential, because it gets harder for us to help. So it kind of feels like, you're kind of stuck in going down this rabbit hole in situations like these, because there are so many schools that need these sorts of resources and need these sorts of programs. But then you turn around and you find programs that are also struggling to find the funding. And so it's like, so where do you want us to pull these resources from? We live in a society that talks about meritocracy and pulling yourself up from your bootstraps. And it's all about this community organizing and this community work. But how are we supposed to do that?
Right.
So,
and I think a lot of people don't really know about the challenges of running a nonprofit. But let's, put in a hypothetical scenario. Let's say your organization was not there. What kind of role has your organization done to really, basically make sure that these young women stay on track? I mean, because it seems like now more than ever, nonprofits as well as community organizations are taking the role that normally public schools should be doing. I mean, so let's put that scenario out there. If your organization was not around, what would be the case?
Yeah, and I can't say for sure, but I know that the mentorship that we provide, the resources that we provide for the girls throughout the year just wouldn't be there. There aren't a lot of programs doing what we do in the schools that we are in. There aren't other programs doing what we are doing. And so it makes you kind of think that these girls will be falling through the cracks, and that's not something that I even like conceptualizing or thinking about, which is why we work so hard to make sure that regardless of funding, we're able to stay in the schools. Our girls don't pay anything to be a part of our programming. They don't pay for any field trips that we go on. They don't pay for snacks. They don't pay for any type of supplies or materials, because it's very important to make this an equitable program. So no matter what sort of background you're coming from, no matter what your SES is, that you can still, participate. So yeah.
So let's go from the kind of the opposite of that question. Mm-hmm. If there was a scenario where you were basically, someone came up, the government came up and said, hey, you're doing really good stuff, what would you ideally like your program to do if resources were not an issue?
Oh, wow. So, of course, expanding our program. Right now, we're at 6 schools in Columbia, Missouri. We're servicing 1 school here, and I would, of course, like to make a much larger impact. But just because of funding, it makes that very, very difficult. One thing that's really important to me, even when I first started this organization, is exposure. Is that we don't realize how key that is for kids in general when it comes to them knowing what is out there, what's available to them, what is possible. And so one thing that I would love to do is to be able to take our girls on way more field trips, being able to take them actually out of the state so that they can see that the world is a lot bigger than where they come from, and to eliminate the fear that they may have about kind of going and trying to reach some of these larger dreams. We also do have a new program that we are launching in Kamuli, Uganda with the Boogaloo Women's Group. And so we're going to be going over there and piloting our program over there to help about 100 young girls in some of the more rural villages. And that takes money. And so that's one thing that, Amanda has been really great at helping us with is, helping us with fundraising for this international endeavor. So when you're talking about what we want to do, of course, it would be great if Desire to Aspire could be a worldwide phenomenon. So yeah, I hope that answered your question a little bit.
It does.
I know Paul wants to ask a question, but I just you've mentioned the field trips a few times. Just what are the field trips about?
Yeah, so we just try to take girls to do different diverse activities. So yoga is a huge thing, and we see how popular that's become, but these girls don't know anything about that, right? So taking them to do that, we've taken them to do, I don't know if you guys have, you're familiar with like aerial aerobics or aerial fitness, the girls who do things on aerial silks. So we take them to do things like that. We take them on college tours, small things that their families may not be able to afford. So taking them to the movies, right? These small things that these girls really don't have access to. We've done other things like Singer donated sewing machines to us. So teaching girls different skills that they may not have access to that are expensive. So that exposure is really, really important.
Paul?
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about this work you're planning in Uganda.
Yes.
What's that all about?
So this is really new. It was crazy. I was asleep, and I just so happened to wake up maybe a couple months ago, and I checked my phone, probably like most millennials do. And I got this email from the Beluga Women's Group in Uganda, and I read it, and they were just talking about how they are a group that is really focused on girls and women, and they saw the programming that we do, and so they wanted to know if there's any way that they could utilize our curriculum with their girls. And so we've been on this journey, this, awesome, amazing journey, but also a little bit scary of, revamping our curriculum so that it is culturally appropriate for these girls, and also working with the women's group there to figure out how can we make programs like this sustainable for them. They have a huge problem when it comes to the pregnancy of young girls because there are no resources. The way that these girls are sustaining themselves is by having children and marrying very young, opposed to actually, staying in school, thinking about leadership or entrepreneurship endeavors. And so we're really working with them to craft a curriculum that is culturally appropriate for the girls in the schools there. So I'm super excited about it. We are going to be hosting a fundraiser next spring, so I will definitely give you guys the information to that so that we can raise funds for this international endeavor, go over there, take tons of supplies over there, and also see how the programming is going with the curriculum that we've created.
And I'm pretty sure even like some of your participants who are part of your organization would definitely like to go overseas and visit, because I'm pretty sure there would be like a cross communication and see another country, because the sad fact is, especially in a lot of urban areas and especially here in the city of Chicago, a lot of young people rarely leave the city or experience maybe life maybe in a different state or in a different country, and to see another world. For example, I went to Chicago public schools too. When I had the opportunity, thanks to my family, to visit my relatives in Japan, it was an eye-opening experience. I was in a country, it was back in 1998, and it's something that really expands one person's mind. So I think what a lot of people, especially our viewers and listeners, would want to know is how are your mentors selected, and also how can maybe, if we have one of our viewers listening, they have kids, they want to, especially young girls who want to be a part of your program, what does it take to really to get access or even cost to be part of your program? So first, how are mentors selected, and then how do people enroll their young women to be part of your organization?
Definitely. So we, like I said, we utilize college women to be our mentors for our young girls. So our college mentors go through an application process, and they also go through an interview process, and we make sure that they're background checked and before they're actually able to work with our girls. Of course, we are looking for women who are outgoing, who are really service-minded, because not every day that you go into the schools is going to be happy and Instagrammable and tweetable, right? There are going to be days that are tough. There are going to be days when you're having tough conversations, and if really you're not really in it for the right reasons, we're going to see attrition, and we don't want that. So we want to make sure that women are actually in it for the right reasons, which is why we do our application, which is why we do our interview, so that we can get a better sense of the women that we're selecting, and not just kind of letting anybody into the program. I think that in this generation, it's very easy for things to be something you want to do because it's tweetable or Instagrammable or because it looks nice, opposed to actually doing it for the right reasons. In terms of people who are wanting to get their girls involved, we are a small organization right now, but if you are looking to get your daughter involved in our mentoring services, I would just encourage you to visit desire2aspire.org, DESIRE, the number 2, aspire, ASPIRE.org, and you can contact us and shoot us over an email or a message and let us know what school your child is at, and we can start making inroads at that school, because we want to service as many girls as totally possible.
When you see, especially some of your participants, especially young women, stand up and break what is clearly a glass ceiling here, because in the United States there's clearly a wage difference between men and women, as well as the ability to get certain opportunities or jobs due to the fact that, of course, there's roadblocks in the way. So when you see one of your students, break that ceiling, or at least push forward to get that job or get the access to the education or go to a high-end college, what does that? How does that make you feel? And does that also make you realize that this is actually working and that this should be expanded on further?
And before, I just want to ask, do you have any hard numbers on how many girls that have gone through your program go to college or anything of that nature?
Yes, so I'll answer both of these questions. So your first question, you asked me just about, can you repeat it one more time?
Well, I mean, definitely breaking the glass ceiling. How does it make you feel in regards when you see that, and does it make you realize too that this program needs to stay and should be expanded on further?
So there's two parts to that question, right? Because it's very easy to look at Desire to Aspire and look at it as being a program that particularly impacts our mentees, right? The girls that we service. And that's true, and that is our goal, and that is our mission. But I think another thing that people don't think about is the impact that this service opportunity also has on the mentors. So I can, of course, speak from the mentees' point of view. All of the hard work that Amanda and I are both doing, when we see moments like our girls graduating from college, when we see moments, even things on a smaller scale, right? Our girls, their grades are going up, right? When we are seeing they're going out for these leads in plays or leadership opportunities in their schools, of course it makes our hearts smile and makes us realize that we're doing this for a reason. And it makes me even more passionate to get up and go and continue fighting the good fight to keep this program funded. I think another thing that is super important is the impact that this has on our mentors. And so just recently I got an email from a mentor who was just she found our website again. She's since of course graduated college, but she found our website again and sent a message and was just talking about how impactful this experience was, how it encouraged her to go into the nursing field and continue to serve and care for people, and how, you know, she doesn't know where she would have been had she not encountered this program. And that really made me sit back for a moment and realize that this program definitely has a dual impact, right? Is that it's very easy to think about the people that we are servicing, but also the people who serve, is that this is a life-changing program for them as well. In terms of statistics, we don't have any stats for how many of our girls go through college. We don't follow our girls through high school. We try our best, but we don't service high school girls right now. So we follow our girls up until they get into 8th grade, and that's just because we don't have the manpower right now to follow our girls to these various high schools. If we had the funding, it would be awesome, and we definitely would. But I definitely have kept in touch with some of the mentees that I started with 7 years ago, who have now since gone through college, and it's been an amazing experience just seeing their growth and development.
I think it would be really, just from if someone didn't know what you guys did, looking on the inside, if you had something like 20% more people go in. I mean, you seem like you have a lot of good work that should be able to have on paper to show other people what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and it's quite clear that you guys are making an impact, especially here in the city of Chicago, as well as you've got numerous other chapters as well. You mentioned you got like 5 other chapters besides the Chicago one? Or?
So we're servicing 6 other schools in Columbia, Missouri right now. So we are working with 7 schools total right now. So we service about 100 girls a school year.
Wow.
Which is really exciting for us to be such a small program.
Wow.
So.
Rebecca?
I was just going to say, could you imagine if we as a country or a city even just decided to fund education and ultimately incorporate your program in every public school, where a girl could just say, instead of wanting to be in like psychology club or something, which, you know, the schools that we do have on the south side probably don't even have that. But if it was just incorporated where anyone that wanted to could just do this in a public school, like that would just be incredible.
Yeah, and one of, you know, the thoughts that I've had too, just being realistic about, you know what I'm saying, how we will never be able to service everybody, is also providing this curriculum, especially the more that we work with it and tweak it, to schools.
Yeah, so like an emotion intelligence class, like you said.
Exactly.
We need that.
So that even if, you know, we can't be there and we can't provide mentors for that school, that we've kind of provided you guys with this curriculum that can be used, so that if they want to start an after-school program, they can do that even with us not physically being there. So that definitely is one of my goals. The more that we tweak and work with our curriculum and refine it, really thinking about ways, because our goal is impact, thinking about ways that we can do that even when we can't physically be there.
All right, and final question, because I would like to ask you numerous other questions, but we do have to end it, unfortunately. You know, you mentioned the website where we can find you online, but can you say it again for our viewers in case they're interested to learn more about your organization? Definitely. And the second part, what do you want to say to young women out there that are perhaps maybe afraid to step up and, you know, maybe go further? So answer those 2 final questions, please.
Definitely. So if you want to find us, you can find us on the web at desiretooaspire.org. So DESIRE, the number 2, aspire, ASPIRE.org. We are also on social media, so you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Desire, DESIRE, the number 2, Aspire, MP. So yeah, that's how you can find us. Keep in contact with us. Feel free to send us messages. I get them immediately on my cell phone, so I'm pretty good at responding. So feel free to contact us. We love hearing from you guys. And then my last words to the girls and women in Chicago. Wow, that's one that I didn't quite prepare for. I don't know why it's kind of on my heart to say. I know you talked about, you know, speaking to girls that are a little bit nervous to step up. And one thing that I can say, even in my own experience, because this has been scary, this is a new endeavor for me. I never ventured out to, you know, have an organization or be leading anything, is that remember that it won't be easy. I don't want to give you that advice that it's going to be easy, but know that it's always going to be worth it. So if you are following your dreams, if this is your passion, know that the road is going to be filled with obstacles, but there are moments, and I can remember so many of them right now, that made it worth it, that made me want to continue fighting the good fight.
All right, that's a very good note to end it on. And to all our viewers and listeners, you can listen to Hard Lens Media every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time on Q4 Radio, 1680 a.m. or q4radio.org. If you like what we do, Hard Lens Media has a Patreon page. Your support is the main heart and backbone to supporting an independent media network here in the city of Chicago so that we can cover stories that corporate media will not cover. So other than that, everyone, peace. Let's all do what we can to build a better future.